Good afternoon. It is July 20th, 2022. And today, really, I would look at today as a range day with an upward bias. But I think the short entries were, I think there were more short entries than there were long. But let's take a look at these trades. You can see the opening price turned out to be a midline. So basically, prices made a measured move down, two measured legs down. And then they broke above the overnight highs. There could be a channel working up now that I'm looking like that. You can see there's some validity to that. You can see, you can see this could be a midline, but that wouldn't help you too much. Just lets you know that the bias is up. So let's take a look at these trades that I marked. So we very clearly in the overnight had this channel working down. Unfortunately, at about before we come in, so wait, hold on, what's this? Oh, let me change this. So if you're in an area where you're trading this early, this is 6 a.m. Eastern time, you get this second entry short off the trend channel. Unfortunately, it is in this congestion, but you know what I did was I entered on a limit order, and it gets pretty backed up, gets pretty close to stopping you out, but it is a second entry off the trend line, and the trend line does hold, so that turns out to be a really good move. But I think the time Max suggests coming in would be 8 o'clock Eastern time, so that's right about here, and we had a slight overshoot of the channel down here, so we're going sideways. You might draw it like this at that time. First entry. So I marked this. We do make a new low. We didn't really get a break yet, but we made a new low after the overshoot. And you get this first entry, failed second entry. I'm not sure if you would be interested in that because you might have your range drawn like this. But I marked it just in case people were looking for that. Now I see you're going into this level of resistance too, so probably not the greatest idea. But if you see that we have this overshoot and this is just going sideways, maybe you take that, maybe you consider that. And if you don't, if you aren't thinking like that, maybe you take this one. Maybe you take it long or the short. I'm seeing that now. I kind of like that instead. And that should be good enough for a scalp. 33. Yeah, that gets you actually a couple points. Then we get congested. We can't even make it back to this midline at this range. And you do get a first entry, second entry. I don't like that. Way too congested. The bias is down. We haven't made a new low. But some people, maybe they see something I don't see and they like that second entry long. We form this level of support right here. And you get a second entry long off of that level of support. So you might take that too. I think I meant to mark that. And we just had this nice leg up, followed by some sideways stuff. So that does lead to what I viewed as a measured leg up. And we bounce off of the midline, which turns out to be yesterday's close. I thought it was yesterday's open, but I had my times on my chart incorrect at first. So it turns out to be yesterday's close. And then we form this downward channel. So we do get a first entry, failed second entry long right here. I wouldn't be looking to take that just yet. But when we get this second entry short that makes it double top with that failure, I think you have to take that. Prices have been flip-flopping on both sides of the EMA. We're finding resistance at this closing price from yesterday. The bias from the overnight was down. I think you want to take that. And it's also confirmation of this channel. So we get a second entry here, no signal bar. This is just in no man's land, very far from the EMA. And we bounce down here. We don't make it to these lows. And the market just rockets up. Unfortunately, I don't see any way to enter this, even though it's a really good move. Let's see. It's like a 37-point move, and I just don't see any way to get in this. Even if you draw this pink channel, maybe you take this, but I wouldn't feel too confident that this was that type of trend by this point. I'm not too sure about that. Maybe this one. I think this one you'd probably enter. I'm going to mark it green. Or even that one too. But then we have some correction, and unfortunately, no entry in here either. Get a break. One leg, two legs up to a new high. You could look at this as one leg and a second leg up to a new high, all very far from the EMA. At this point, we're well above the overnight, or not well above, but we're above the overnight highs, far away from the EMA, so you want to wait for a correction. This is a second entry long right here, so you might consider that. But it kind of looks like one leg down to me. So it's not off a trend channel or anything. I'm not crazy about that. We just had congestion here. We break lower into congestion. And that's 3 bars stacked side by side. That one's a doji. So if I were to enter on a second entry, it would probably be like right here, but that's at that point it's below the EMA. So I don't really like that. So really what I was looking at here is the failure. First entry, failed second entry right here. It looks like it's off that trend channel. But again, we have, these are inside bars. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars stacked up at that point. We're not supposed to take failures in congestion. This looks like congestion. But it does look like it's off a trend channel. So I would still be too worried to go short at this point because this move up was very strong. So that's what might keep me out of that. And you can see we still continue to form congestion. And then we move then we form, or then we have this potential trend channel working down. So I don't think this first entry, second entry, I kind of looked at this as a second entry and a double test. But it closes below the EMA and it's still in congestion. So that's why I didn't like that. But then we continuously make these lower highs and we just have confirmation of this trend channel. And I think at that point we have enough evidence to call this a failure right here. Still risky because this looks congested, but we broke below this congestion, pulled back, and prices failed to go higher. So we get an overshoot of that channel, and you get a first entry, failed second entry. So maybe if you see all that, maybe you take this. I would prefer not taking this because it just looks like one leg up. But you can see we get a break of that channel, move to a new high, probably bounces right here. So people probably viewed that as a second entry short and took that with room back to the EMA. We bounce off of the overnight highs, make a couple legs up, and I would have drawn this like this at first, but then it looks like we make a measured move higher. So a lot of dojis in here. So you probably just want to sit tight. And then we clearly form this channel down, making lower highs. This is a second entry short, but at this point, it looks like you're going into this midline. And you got all these bars stacked up. I think, me personally, I don't think I can take that. You got this doji here, doji, doji, doji. But then when we come down here and bounce and you get a first entry, second entry short, I think at that point you have enough evidence to go short. I probably wouldn't or shouldn't take that in real time, but you can see after the fact. A lot of other people like that too. That's the biggest move of the day. So we come down here, we bounce here. For whatever reason, this was a level of support. We move up, and you do get this failure right here, but that's in the middle of this channel, so I don't think you want to take that. And then we form this channel down. First entry, this is a failure right here. Doesn't touch the EMA. I'm not crazy about it. It's in the middle of this channel. But then you get this second entry short. You might consider that, but there's not a whole lot of room to this swing low, but it is off the channel. And we get an overshoot, leads to a break. And this is really just some sideways stuff. You can see we make a new low here, and you get a first entry, second entry short. And that, I think that fails. So look, we got a couple dojis right here, and this basically, it looks like this is all inside this bar. So that's why you probably want to sit out of that. Turns out we're in this channel up, and you get an overshoot that leads to a break. So now we make this new high, and you get a first entry, failed second entry. If you see all this, I think you can take this, even though it's kind of in the middle of this channel. You might, because this is a new high, you might draw the channel like this. And now I'm looking at it, and I think other people saw it that way too. But I think originally I'd probably have it drawn like this in real time. And if you see this channel working up, and you got to overshoot, and you have this second entry trap that trapped a bunch of longs, and then you get this lower high and this failure, I think you got to take this. We get an overshoot of that channel, and a bunch of buyers come back in because we have these levels of support, the close from yesterday, the open from today, and we buy into this range. Breakout fails, and then it bounces, and then we break higher into this range, and that fails and bounces, and you get this higher low. But well, actually that's a second entry, so you might, I don't think you can take that. Technically this is a second entry, but breaks below the EMA, and you don't really have a real channel right here, unless, yeah, I don't think you can take that really. But I'm going to mark it green. We break higher into this range, and this right here, you might have had your range drawn off this low, so you get a form this low, test it once, test it a second time, and then you get a triple test with a very bullish signal bar and room to these highs to scalp out. So you might take that. I think the lows ended up being right here. So I moved that down. Then you come up here and you get a second entry long. And I probably wouldn't have seen this in real time. Maybe you would have. Actually, if you're actively charting, you would probably see it. But this looks like it bounces off the lows of this range, and it's also a first entry, second entry, and a higher low off of this channel. So that's, if you see all that, I think you take that. That's a good move. And that's all I saw for today. So I hope everyone had a great day, and I'll be back tomorrow.